Thank you for waiting so patiently.
Yes. I've been writing and publishing since 1984, full-time since 1994. Usually, I got started with the horror genre. I still do a whole lot of horror fiction, novels and such. I've also done historical fiction, media tie-ins, books based on TV shows and things like that. But then, and I've also done some nonfiction because I write for a lot of educational companies. And Courtney and I were approached about 4 years ago by Arcadia Publishing, who puts out these nice little sepia tone photo histories of just about every community and town and county in the nation. And they said, would you want to do one on Waynesboro? We said, okay. So we spent the next year in the basement of the old bank. Boy, and nothing smells like the basement of an old bank. It's got this really... Anyway, so we wrote this book on Waynesboro, and as a native Waynesborian, I've learned a whole lot. I thought I knew about the history, and I really knew very little, and I learned a whole lot about this. But one of the most fascinating things was the beginning of Waynesboro. And now I move on to my little notes. Oh, okay. In 1739, Joseph Tease bought 465-acre tract of land on the western side of the Blue Ridge Mountains that connected Rockfish Gap with what was then called Beverly Mills Place, which is Stanton. He purchased additional adjacent tracts until his death in 1755. Joseph Tease bequeathed the land to his sons, William and Charles. William and his wife, Mary, built a cabin on their land, and when she was widowed, she converted the cabin into a tavern. The settlement that grew around that was initially called Teesville and is now called Waynesboro. Now I'm going to get the pronunciation wrong, but I'll do the best I can. In 1782, the Marquis de Chastellux, who fought in the Yorktown campaign, visited Widow Tees Tavern on the and this is all true, on the recommendation of Thomas Jefferson, who lived on the eastern side of the Blue Ridge at Monticello. While the location is not exactly known, it was, according to a writing by the Marquis, 200 paces west of the ford of South River. The Marquis and his men stayed a single night at Widow Tees Tavern, and he wrote afterwards that his visit to Tees Tavern, that it was one of the worst taverns in America. Yes! Baby. One particular bit of interest, a solitary tin vessel or bowl was used by the Tees family in the tavern for what seemed like too many different purposes, both seemly and unseemly. The bedding the men were given was suspect. The entourage soon left Tees Tavern and sought lodging west near what is now Greenville. We Waynesborians embrace that unique declaration as part of our heritage. Now, Appalachia and mountain areas are wonderful fodder for tall tales and folk tales. And there are a lot of tall tales set in this area. But we have no tall tales or stories about dear Widow Tees and her tavern. So I thought, we need to fix that. Why does a tall tale have to have been written 200 or 300 years ago? Why can't they be written now, and then 200 or 300 years from now people go, oh, what a nice old tale. So I wrote a tall tale about Widow Tees. And I'm going to read that to you now. It's a single page, and then I'll give it to everybody and y'all can do the illustration. The title is Widow Tees and the Crayfish King.
Well, of course it is.
Widow Tees put on her sun hat, picked up her trusty rusty bucket, and trudged down the winding path from her log tavern to the South River. It was June, and blackberries were growing thick and wild on the river's far side. She hoped to gather a bucketful to make cobbler for her family and for any travelers who might come over the mountain into the valley and need a place to spend the night. But when she reached the bank of the river, she saw, standing in the middle of the whirling current, a most enormous creature, a crayfish the size of a cow. It stared at her with big beady eyes, wriggled its large antenna, and clicked its giant claws. "Hello, old woman," said the creature. "I am the Crayfish King. No one crosses the river without my permission." "Pfft," said Widow Tease, for she was a tough old hide who let little bother her. "I can cross if I want to. Now move out of my way." "No," snarled the Crayfish King. "Step into the water and I'll snip you to pieces." Widow Tease rolled her eyes and put down the rusty, trusty bucket. "I'm going to have those blackberries one way or other," she said. The crayfish rubbed his scaly chin with his crusty claw. Then he said, "I tell you what, I will give you 3 tasks. If you complete them to my satisfaction, you may cross the river for the berries." "Bossy old thing," said Widow Tease under her breath. "First," said the Crayfish King, "you must sing me a song that has no end. Then, you must fling an object so far that it does not come back to earth for at least 2 full miles. Last, you must bring me a meal that will create great awe when I taste it." "So you want me to sing, fling, and bring?" said Widow Tease. "Precisely," said the Crayfish King. Widow Tease thought for a moment, then tipped back her head and sang, "This is a song, a very special song. This song has no end, but it isn't very long." Then she stopped. "Ha!" said the Crayfish King. "You fail." "No, I did not," chuckled Widow Tease. "You said I was to sing a song that has no end. The words no end were indeed in my song, so I did precisely what you asked." Crayfish King snarled. Wait, lost my place. Oh, and stomped one jointed leg, making the river splash. "Very well," he said, "but you cannot complete the second task. You cannot fling an object so far that it does not come back to earth for at least 2 full miles." With a smirk, Widow Tease reached into a nearby bush, pulled out a startled starling, and hurled it high into the air, where it flew away up into the Blue Ridge and settled at the tip-top of a rock at the tip-top of the mountain, more than 2 miles away. "Curses," growled the Crayfish King. "You have passed 2 tasks. You cannot complete the last, I'm sure. Very few meals have ever filled me with awe, and taking a good look at you, I don't suspect you have the proper culinary skills." "I'll be right back," said Widow Tease. She hurried home to her tavern, cooked up a quick stew in the pot on the hearth, scraped it into the family's tin bowl, and brought it back to the Crayfish King. He took one taste and bellowed, "What kind of foul concoction is this? It's awful!" "Awful?" laughed Widow Tease. "Does not that mean full of awe? Doesn't something awful create awe?" The Crayfish King, spitting and cursing, swam away, and Widow Tease crossed the river to collect blackberries for the cobbler, though the cobbler she made was, much like the stew, quite awful.
Okay then.
Oh, this is going to be easy.
Because I've always